Today I've got a short and sweet ganache recipe that's perfect for this season. Before we get into the ganache, I just wanted to say I created an orangey brown macaron shell using a true brown and pumpkin colorant in my macaron shell. And then as decoration, I'm using an orange edible glitter. I think this one is Copper Sky, mixed with a little bit of sugar. Now you can just sprinkle edible glitter right onto the top of your macaron shells after you've piped them and before they go into the oven or have a chance to rest. But personally, I really like both the appearance and the texture. It's like just a little bit of this crispy crunch that's added to a macaron if you sprinkle sugar on the shell along with the glitter that you're using. So while it's optional, I really like it, especially as a fun seasonal holiday macaron. I think it's so cute. And again, the texture is really nice too. If you have never done that before, make sure to start small. A little bit goes a long way, both of the sugar sprinkle and of the glitter. So to make sure you're not wasting anything, honestly, just start with like a half a teaspoon of sugar and a little pinch of glitter and just see the ratio that you like, and if you even like this on your macarons before you do it to all of them. I'm just going to otherwise rest and bake my macarons like normal, and then we'll get into the ganache. All right, this is a basic classic ganache recipe, just a few ingredients, really easy to do, but it packs a punch in the flavor department. It's just perfect for this time of year. I'm using a mix of both gold, which is a caramelized chocolate, and white chocolate. I have that in a small bowl. Then I have cream, vanilla paste, molasses, and then some spices in a small saucepan. Though you technically could heat this up in the microwave, especially with the thick molasses in here and the spices that I'm adding in. I really recommend doing this on the stove. So I'm using ground cinnamon and ginger, though you could use fresh ginger and or cinnamon stick if you prefer. Now I'm partially melting the chocolate in my microwave, so you could use a double boiler. That's going to help the ganache come together a lot more easily in the next steps. And then I just have this cream mixture on the stove, and I'm going to bring it up to a scald. I really recommend whisking this as it warms up to make sure that everything completely combines again, especially with that molasses in here. We want to make sure it's completely combined and melted into the cream. Once you see steam rising up from the saucepan, it should be about at a scald. You can remove it and then immediately pour it over the partially melted chocolate. Because of the ratio of a classic white chocolate ganache recipe, white chocolate outnumbers the cream 2-1. So if the chocolate is not partially melted, it can be a little bit hard for this ganache to come together if only the cream is what is doing all the heavy lifting. So that's why I partially melted the white chocolate, and that should be enough so that the cream can finish melting the chocolate and everything can come together really well. So I'm stirring all of this together just with my spoon, or you could use a spatula. And once the chocolate seems completely melted, I'm going to switch over from my spoon to an immersion blender, emulsify the ganache, and then emulsify in the butter. If you don't have an immersion blender for this type of classic, really basic ganache, it should be just fine, but truly the texture as you emulsify a ganache, it is so smooth and so creamy that I highly recommend investing in an immersion blender if you don't already have one. After the ganache base itself is emulsified, I'm adding in the butter, room temperature unsalted. Of course, if you want to add some salt, please do that separately. And then I'm going to emulsify this one more time. The last ingredient I'm adding in here is some orange zest, and I like to add that freshly zested and right at the very end. You can either fold this in with a spatula or emulsify it in with your immersion blender. Now I'm transferring the ganache out and into a new container. I really like to use a plastic wrap lined sheet pan. That's how I was taught and trained. It's going to create a ton of surface area, and that's going to help the ganache cool down and set up really quickly and be able to use more quickly than if it's in a deeper layer in a bowl or another kind of dish. But you can use whatever container you prefer. Just make sure the surface is covered on contact with plastic wrap, and then leave it at room temperature for a couple hours to cool and set up completely. If you are ready to fill your macaron shells and the ganache still seems a little bit soft, you can transfer it into the refrigerator for about 30 minutes or up to about an hour to harden a little bit more quickly before transferring it into a piping bag and filling your macarons. This ganache, between the caramely flavor of the gold chocolate, the really intense spice and molasses flavor, the vanilla bean, and then also that really bright orange zest, you don't need any other fillings. This ganache is sufficient. However, if you did want to add a secondary filling, instead of piping one huge amount of this ganache over the whole surface of the macaron, you could certainly pipe a ring of ganache and then fill the center with any other kind of filling you desire. This ganache would go great with something like a little piece of gingerbread or a gingerbread cookie dough or an orange compote or marmalade. You have so many options to go in so many different directions. I hope you loved this recipe. Again, it is short and sweet and so full of flavor. I think it's perfect for this time of year, and it's not quite so holiday focused that I think that this could last really well through January and even early February, as everybody wants to really lean into those warmer, spicier flavors. Thanks so much for watching this tutorial. I hope you enjoyed the recipe, and I can't wait to see you in my next tutorial. Until then, have a wonderful rest of your day. Bye!